Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. It is the Friday night edition. It is the quarterbacks edition. Joined with Anthony, Durst, and Bill. Durst, you are pulling double duty, helping get the summer podcasting going. How's double duty treating you?
Hey, looking forward to some Oregon tape this weekend, so doing well.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're doing Oregon on Tuesday, I believe, right? So, yeah. And Anthony, it's the end of a long week of work. It's Friday night. You get to talk football. So how's everything going out in Long Island?
Oh, it's going. Same old Long Island, same old work week, but always happy to spend my Friday nights talking ball and talking some quarterbacks.
Cool. And Bill, it's just good to see you. I know we chat. It seems like we chat like daily, but it's good to see you on a podcast. So how's everything going?
Everything's going good. It's Friday night. We've got some drinks. We're going to talk some quarterbacks tonight. We're going to talk, top of this class. We got a special guest coming on at some point as well. Folks, first things first, though, before we get too deep into the weeds here, make sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like the video. Make sure you drop a comment. Tell us how great we are at this. Or if you're like the South Carolina fans, tell us how much you hate us. Make sure as well to subscribe. If you're a South Carolina fan, subscribe and you can hate comment on every video. We appreciate that. Make sure you follow our lovely moderator, Jim, at NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic on X. Also, check out his simulator over at draftprofessor.com. It is probably one of the best simulators out there. I was not paid to say that. I'm saying that of my own free will and volition. Make sure you follow my lovely co-hosts as well, Anthony_Russo97 and Durst NFL Draft, because couldn't do this alone. All 75 of us, almost 80 of us here at the Draft Professor, we do this because we love to do this. We also do this for you. So if you want to help us out so we can stay on the air, like, share, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you get notified when we go live with daily draft content. We're going to start ramping up into 2 episodes a week. That being said, I think we're going to start with the quarterbacks. And I think first one on the docket is Mark Gronowski from Iowa. So Durst, I'll turn the floor over to you. Do you want to talk about Mark Gronowski and let us know what we got going on?
Yeah, so of course this is a South Dakota State transfer. He's listed at 6'3", 230. While he was at South Dakota State, he threw for over 10,000 yards and had over 12,000 total yards of offense. Back-to-back FCS national championships in 2022 and 2023. So this is an experienced guy with 55 starts going into his 6th season, and he's got a 49-6 record. I am not going to pretend to have watched all 55 of his starts. I got through about maybe 5 of his games, but exciting player for Iowa. I think is going to fit in really well. Transferring into that system. So the number one strength I have for him is experience. I mean, holy cow, this guy has been around for a long time, played a lot of games, a lot of high pressure games, because this is a team that went deep into the playoffs and the FCS, and so he's really a guy that's you can count on at the end of the game. So I basically said there was a lot of clutch performances on his tape. Generally good mechanics, delivery, and release. Thought he had functional athleticism, very good on rollouts, has a muscular, densely built frame that can withstand physical punishment. He orchestrated essentially a ball control offense with a lot of runs and a lot of short passes, which again, I think is going to fit in really well going from South Dakota State to Iowa. He shows patience in the pocket and can make some progressions. He does a good job of looking off defenders. And what's maybe a little overlooked, but if you're a Green Bay fan or a Buffalo fan, he plays well in inclement weather. So he's got some tape there of some cold games there at South Dakota State. Now here's another little thing: he's got 5 career punts. As far as I could tell, I think it would translate to 1 punt per season, and he's got a career long of 48 yards.
Yeah,
so,
I think you just stumped Bill. Did you see the expression on Bill's face? That was
That, and I had a thought. Why don't we get a Cam Scattaboo, Mark Gronowski punting competition going on here?
The look on
I don't
Bill's
think he's going to
face
be an
when
NFL punter, but he
you
could be
dug
an
out that he
emergency
punted.
punter.
That was good. That was
They'll do it.
good.
It'll be a new version of an RPO. It'll be the run punt option.
Right on,
There
right
you
on.
go.
Love it.
So, of course, I do have a couple of negatives for him because, of course, everybody's got negatives. And I just actually I just scrolled down too far accidentally. Hang on one second. And okay. So I felt that the balls routinely sailed on him. I thought that while there was a lot of long runs on film, he appeared to be more like a 4.7 second type of athlete. So this is not a guy that I expect his running ability to be a major part of his NFL prospects in a sense. The more I watched, there was examples of him having above average arm strength, but I thought that there was some balls that kind of wandered and kind of wobbled and just didn't come out always. Like at the end of it was like not a real tight spiral once it reached its deep target. So again, smaller sample size, basically 4 games out of this 55. So other people may have seen those games or other games and said, well, you're talking about tight spiral after tight spiral, no problem there. So I didn't think he was really a precision passer that was thrown into a lot of tight windows. He also had a torn ACL in 2021. That's a while back, but worth noting. And then a shoulder injury in 2024. So in the end, I think Gronkowski has got a great chance of being Iowa's best quarterback since Nate Staley back in 2019. And if so, a legitimate NFL prospect. In fact, I went ahead and just compared him to Nate Staley just because I'm like, why not?
Yeah. Why
Anthony,
not?
what do you got on this guy?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of the big points. Experience and winning are, I think, the two biggest positives for him. In addition to that big frame, 6'3", 230. He's tough to bring down in the pocket, and he's able to use that size, but still be able to move. I think fairly well. Not any kind of elite scrambler, but he can move around a bit. I think one of the alarming things that I saw, I'm not the biggest analytics person in the world, but his PFF grade for throws that were between 0 and 9 yards, so what would constitute as a short pass, his PFF grade was a 45. And I think at least part of the reason for that is what you hit on, Durst. There's just a lot of throws that just kind of sail away, throws that just are too far out ahead of a receiver or over their head, whatever. So it just feels like he's not as sharp with his accuracy and as pinpoint as you would want it to be. I also think just he doesn't, you hit on this too, he doesn't really make NFL throws. He's not, and part of it, it's reminiscent of the JJ McCarthy criticisms where it wasn't really asked to do a whole lot just because South Dakota State kind of ran through the schedule. I think they went undefeated, and he didn't really need to, have a game after game where he had to be the hero for the team. By and large, they were able to win just because they were just outclassing pretty much all of the FCS. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, now he's making the jump to not just the FBS, but he's making the jump to the Big Ten, the best conference, depending on who you ask. For some people, that's a debate for another day. But nevertheless, we'll see how he does with a Big Ten schedule and an offense that is not going to shine in the conference. I mean, there's some talent, but it's in the Big Ten. It certainly is not one of the premier offenses, and never really has been. So, we'll see what happens. And you also hit on the injuries, the injury history. I read, so he had the surgery in January for the shoulder injury, and I've read that he should be good to start the season. It seems like he's actually kind of ahead of schedule, so it shouldn't impact him for the season for playing, but it is definitely something to think about long term. So right now, I would say he's a late day 3 guy. And we'll see if he's able to perform well against the Big Ten. Certainly could rise up draft boards.
Good deal. So,
Bill, what do you have?
yeah, so Anthony and Durst hit on pretty much everything. This is a guy who's a proven winner at every stop. He has this football IQ that allows him to process coverage quickly, but I really want to see how that translates from FCS level to FBS level. Like Anthony talked about, this Iowa offense is not something you write home about. If you're a quarterback, if you're a running back, it's a different story, but it's not built for a passer. The arm, not elite. Passes flutter on him. They sail on him. Especially another thing I noticed when he's on the move, his base is inconsistent from snap to snap when he's rolling out. On one snap, he'll look like a star and be able to hit the spot on the move, and then the next time the pass sails on him. So I've got a late day 3, like round 7 grade for Gronowski. This is a Taylor Heineke mold of a quarterback, a guy who's going to be the glue of your locker room. He's going to be that voice that rallies the team. You just hope that you never have to start him for a long period of time. He could probably come in for a quarter or two and finish out a game, but you'll probably be perusing the waiver wire looking for a replacement if you have to start him long term.
Okay. So question about, let's say, quarterback development. So I'm hearing passes sail, and I think, Anthony, you were the one that mentioned the low PFF grade for passes 0 to 9 yards. Okay. Is that a skill that can be learned? Like, have we seen quarterbacks that couldn't throw short in college that were able to develop that? Like if he fixes that part of his game, does he become significantly more viable, or it's still a lot of questions, even if he can throw some of the touch short passes?
If he wasn't going to be 24 years old during the season, absolutely. But the fact is he's going to turn 24 in October. You have to wonder if this is who he is. If it was like an Anthony Richards situation where he's 19, 20 years old coming into the league, absolutely, you can develop that. But when you're 23, almost 24, and you have to spend a season or two reworking those mechanics, now you're into 26, 27. You're into Brandon Whedon territory at that point.
Yeah, and 55 starts. So, I mean, yeah, it's not just he's an older guy that sat around and maybe, but I mean, 55 starts, you got to think he's not going to develop or as much as a younger guy.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, like at this point, we know he has a ceiling physically and a ceiling athletically. Like, those things, they're God-given. You have them or you don't. So, he can fix mechanics and those kinds of things and technique and form, whatever. But as the guys just said too, he's been playing how many years now as a starter? So if you haven't done it by now, what are you doing?
Yep. And it goes back to it too. When we can rework it all day in training camp and 7-on-7s, but when the pads are put on and the bullets start flying and pass rushers start getting around him, how long is it before he reverts back to what he knows in that 55 games, which is those short fluttering passes?
Yeah. And Gronowski is at Iowa, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was South Dakota State, but now he's Iowa.
Okay. Next quarterback we're doing is Rocco Becht, who's at Iowa State.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, I was just making sure I had the whole Iowa State thing down.
I didn't actually pick up on that until just now.
You'll piss off a lot of people if you get that wrong. A lot of people in the state of Iowa will not be happy if you get that wrong.
And we have to get that Iowa demographic right.
Yes.
Yes, for the podcast.
Well, no, we got to tick them off too. We're going across all 50 states. We already hit South Carolina. Let's check off Iowa. Let's see if we can get through all 50 before the season even starts.
Cross-country tour of hatred.
Yeah,
exactly.
And by the way, so Anthony and Durst, if you didn't know, when we did the South Carolina podcast, somebody watched it and disliked, Durst, you were on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So somebody didn't like everybody agreed on, what was it, Nick Harbor? Every podcaster going to Nick Harlow.
Yeah, we
with
were
the South
questioning a lot.
Carolina
Like I brought up the
fans.
question about whether or not, do any of you guys think that he might be playing the wrong position? And we kind of brought up a few other things, and in terms of
Oh.
wide receiver development, and a South Carolina fan didn't really like that.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll go. We're going to move to multiple demographics, and if I or the channel hasn't pissed you off yet, you just need to watch more podcasts because I'm sure we're going to give you something. But that being said, Rocco Becht, Iowa State. So Anthony, what do you have?
Yeah. So the first and most important thing about Rocco Becht is he is the son of great Jets tight end Anthony Becht, who is now he took the West Virginia job, right? Is he there now? He was in the UFL. He was in the UFL for I don't remember which team. Either way, Jets legend Anthony Becht. So son Rocco, who was throwing passes to Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel this past year. I think there's a few things to like about him. One of them is he does have that experience in a pro style offense that Iowa State runs. Seems able to, manage it very well. Obviously, both of those receivers put up very big numbers this year, and Rocco was a reason for that. I think he does handle himself well under pressure, being able to navigate, get outside the pocket, still make plays downfield. Mobile, similar to Gronowski in that he's not gonna, blow your socks off with how fast he is and make these insane running plays. But certainly able to, again, get outside the pocket, scramble for a first down, that kind of thing, and able to make those throws. I think he's just very inconsistent with his mechanics. His release is kind of gross. And normally I'm not the guy that really is super concerned about somebody's release. Usually I would say if you can make the throw, you can make the throw. I don't really care how it gets there. But just watching some of these throws, it just doesn't. It just looks wrong, and I don't like it. And you can also see, because it's not a great release, you could tell he is just trying to push the ball down the field, and he just does not have that natural arm strength that you look for in an NFL quarterback. I think, and he doesn't really. I don't think he throws with a ton of anticipation. I think he's another guy also like Gronowski. He misses a lot of short throws. His PFF grade for 0 to 9 yards was 50 something. So he wasn't great either in that regard. Also just too undersized, but I shouldn't say undersized. He's not big. He's not big. He's 6'1", 210, which I guess is fine. You would probably want maybe a couple more inches in height, maybe 5-10 more pounds. But overall, I just another guy that I don't think has the ceiling and the upside of an NFL starter. I kept it in the Jets family for my comp. I wrote down Taj Boyd, for those of us who remember, former Clemson quarterback, was on the Jets for a hot minute. I don't think he maybe got on the field once. But either way, again, has that some good mobility, some good ability to throw outside the pocket. Occasionally he'll make a big play, down the field, but overall just the consistency's not there. He would need to clean up a lot of his mechanics and technique issues to be even close to being viable. Another guy, I have a late day 3 grade on him. But Bill, care to share your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Everything. The big thing I do like though is that he has ice in his veins. When he's under pressure, he remains calm. You don't get happy feet in the pocket with him. The problem is though, there's not a lot else in Becht's wheelhouse. You mentioned it, the release. The McShay show talks about it a lot when they do their summer scouting. They call it load to arrival, LTA. So from the wind up to the pitch, it's a dumpster fire. And I'm being nice. when the ball comes off his hands, it's a tight spiral, but getting it there is a bit of a problem. You've got a less than average arm. You've got mechanical inconsistencies. He's, like I said, ice in his veins. The NFL bloodlines are on display. He's got a good football IQ. He knows where and what to do. He just doesn't throw with anticipation, like Anthony mentioned. I've got a late day 3 grade, like right around round 6 for Becht. I think there's enough there. If you wanted to take a flyer as a camp body, he'd be worth it. My comp is Diet Colt McCoy, not even the full flavored version. This is the watered down Colt McCoy is what you're going to get from Becht. If I had to, between Iowa and Iowa State, I'm sorry to the entire state of Iowa, but you may want to look elsewhere for quarterback play this upcoming season. But Durst, take us home on Rocco, please.
Sure. So, I hate to bore everybody, but we're in pretty much a complete agreement. So I have him as a round 6, round 7. I said he's been a good young starter for the Cyclones, but I don't believe he has the traits to be an NFL starter. But I'll get into a couple of positives. So I wrote down that he falls into the acceptable size and frame category with above average mobility and toughness. While he falls into the game manager bucket, he's capable of some different arm angles, making some throws on the move. He generally does a pretty good job avoiding turnovers. So he's got 17 interceptions in 27 games as a starter. He also does a good job at avoiding sacks. So he's got a 10.4 pressure to sack ratio in his career. Displays good situational awareness and can make some post-snap adjustments. Iowa State runs a little bit more of a pro-style system, which is something that Anthony mentioned earlier. It's including some quarterback under center and some design rollouts. But he's got below average arm strength. Both his range and ball velocity appear limited. Balls are frequently not on time or off target. Does not have the arm strength to compensate for the ball getting out late. Some guys can get the ball out late, but they get it so quick there that it doesn't really matter as much, or it doesn't come back to bite them. But when you get it off on time and it's slower to get there, that's a combination that probably won't get you far in the NFL. He's prone to getting balls deflected at the line of scrimmage, and already spotty accuracy may get significantly worse with the loss of wide receivers Noel and Higgins. So that's all I got for you.
Okay, so a couple questions on Becht. I'm looking him up as you guys were talking. He's played, I'm going to say the equivalent of 2 full seasons. There is a 3rd season of stats, but it looks like he could take a red shirt for 2022.
Yeah, 27 starts.
Yeah, so there's no guarantee he's in this draft class. Like, he could go back to school for another year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like I liked what I heard, and just a couple things for the draft professor audience. So, to the best of my knowledge, Bill, Durst, and Anthony were not comparing notes before the podcast.
Nope.
Right? Like, we have a group chat. I didn't see anything in there, but when we're generally speaking, when we come on a draft professor podcast, unless people have tweeted out about the player and, Bill responded to Durst or Anthony responded to Bill, we don't necessarily know what each of the other draft professors is going to say about the player. So it's just giving the audience, if this is your first time catching us, most of this is a relatively authentic take from just the standpoint of we're each discussing what we see in the quarterback. So the next player we're going to talk about is Luke Altmeyer. So Bill, do you want to kick off Luke Altmeyer?
Yeah, so Luke Altmeyer from Illinois, 6'2", 205. We just kind of hammered Becht's release and how bad it looks. I think Altmeyer has a whip-like release, and he gets out of there quick, especially on short throws and screens. You can see that ball just pop out of there. He also can extend plays with his mobility. He's not the fastest runner on planet Earth, but he can move out of the pocket and make some plays if you need him to. This is a guy also, I saw it on tape several times. He is willing to stand in the pocket and take a hit. If it means getting the throw there, he will take the hit. The other big thing, of all the quarterbacks in this class, I'm going to make the argument that Luke Altmeyer is the one that has the clutch gene. I believe 5 basically come from behind or fourth quarter wins, which led the nation, if I'm correct in that. This is a guy, when the lights are on bright and the clock is ticking down, he's not afraid of the big moment. The problem is when there's what I like to call junk around the pocket, so defenders flying, coming free, he panics the other 50 minutes of the game. His footwork breaks down entirely too often, which leads to erratic ball placement. He's inconsistent. He panics when he's under duress, throws the ball in harm's way. He also does struggle with post-snap decision-making, especially in disguised coverages where they're rotating the safeties on the back end. All in all, though, if you want a guy who's going to stand in the pocket, take the hit, make the throw, can work in the short and intermediate game, not necessarily going to be the long ball thrower, doesn't have a howitzer strapped to his shoulder, but a guy that can take care of the ball and be a true game manager, then Luke Altmeyer is your guy. I've got a round 6 grade on him, and he's eerily reminiscent of Gardner Minshew when Minshew was at Washington State in that Mike Leach style of offense, a guy who could function in the short and intermediate game. You're not going to ask him to throw 50-yard bombs. You're going to ask him, take care of the ball, put it in your hands, go win us a football game, and then next week we'll figure out what's going on with the starter. But Durst, what do you have on Mr. Altmeyer from Illinois?
Yeah, unlike Gronowski, this is a guy I watched a ton of. Of course, a lot of it had to do with the Illinois wide receivers last year that I was watching, but I watched a lot of this guy's games. So just from his bio, what it says is he led the nation in career game winning drives in the final minute or OT with 5. And he also led the nation with 3 game-winning drives in 2024. So I actually have in my numerical grading system this intangibles, and it's not just are you a leader, but it's a little bit more involved in that, and a lot of it is clutch. So I actually went back and increased his grade in that category because of that. When I went and watched the film, and then I saw that stat, I'm like, oh, I'm going to increase his grade a little bit on that end. So anyway, so what I have is he falls into the acceptable size and frame bucket once again. He is a good mechanics, release, and delivery. He's fairly accurate, including on design rollouts. Throws with good touch. Has a tendency to loft throws into the intermediate at level, though. So almost a little bit of a alley-oop kind of lofting throws in the middle there. He's another guy that runs a little bit of a pro-ish system. I call it a pro-style spread with some under center. He's had a ton of clutch moments at the end of games, so that's really his claim to fame in a sense. But I got a lot of negatives on them. So average to below size, arm strength, and athleticism, inconsistent sensing pressure, occasionally resorts to one read then run, but he's not a good runner. So some guys I don't mind doing that, but not when you're not a good runner. Unable to regularly extend plays. I wrote down he almost always gets caught when trying to scramble. Will frequently run into sacks. So he's got a 23.5 career sack to pressure to sack ratio. He loses accuracy when attempting off-platform throws or when he's forced to scramble. And he holds the ball a little long at times. There is, or the longer he holds the ball, the less likely there will be a positive outcome for the offense. He has lots of low and off-target passes, balls that kind of go like below the knees and so forth for the receivers. And he does not have arm strength to make the tighter window throws. He needs to improve his ball security when he runs. Again, he's not a good runner, but he also fumbled 11 times in 2024. So running, we might want to cut that out a little bit. What's his name? But Belima, the coach there at Illinois. In the end, Altmeyer doesn't have the traits to be a high-end starting quarterback, but could be an adequate backup, spot starter in the right ecosystem. Something maybe along the Shanahan tree might be the ideal landing spot for him. I've got a high-end, I think is high-end would be a Davis Mills. Was a starter for Houston Texans for a couple years before, somebody better came along. Low-end, maybe like a Brandon Allen kind of player. So, Anthony, what you got on this guy?
Yeah, a lot of similar stuff. I think I wrote down he's the king of just like chuck it down the sideline and hope for the best. And that's not like a negative necessarily when you have guys like Pat Bryant, running routes out there. Loves to just throw it up and put the trust in your big receivers, which if it works, it works. I can't be mad at it. But you guys talked about it. Throws really well with touch, but it's almost to a fault because he just doesn't really drive passes, with a lot of velocity. And part of that is just I don't think he has, that big of an arm in the first place. Absolutely. In terms of the pressure from, the fans and the atmosphere, great at handling that pressure. When it comes to pressure from defensive linemen, is not great at handling that. Absolutely
Bingo.
can just fall apart at the seams in certain situations. Junk, as Bill said. One other thing I noticed, I feel like I talked about how he throws very nice sideline passes to Pat Bryant. I feel like he rarely attacks the middle of the field. Was not a big part of what I saw on his tape, which is, being able to throw to the middle of the field and make plays is kind of a big deal in the NFL. That's something that I would like to see more of this year. I wrote down, I got some like Dorian Thompson-Robinson vibes from him a bit. That's kind of where I'm at with him. Similar grade, I would say like, late 5th, early 6th kind of area. A guy that I think can come in, can, like Durst said, be a backup, maybe a starter in a certain situation or an injury or something. But I don't see, big time starter ceiling with him.
Okay, so I'm looking up the Illinois wide receivers because it sounds like Illinois has put receivers into the last 2 drafts. It was Pat Bryant last year, and he went, I believe it was somebody who played in the Senior Bowl then went undrafted to the Lions. And the name is escaping me. I want to say it's Anthony something, but I don't remember. Like Anthony Johnson.
Is that
2 years ago? Because
Maybe.
Illinois has put a receiver into the Senior Bowl the last 2 years. But anyways, here's my point. So I'm looking and I don't know who the Illinois wide receivers are, but it sounds like Illinois has a legit QB. Like even if you're getting a 6th round grade, you're still one of the better quarterbacks in college football, right? Mm-hmm. So who's he throwing to this year? I'm looking. I have a lot of names, but I'm not necessarily confident that the seniors that I'm looking at. Oh, actually, I take that back. I found one. Hank Beatty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at our lads right now, and Hank Beatty's not even the starting slot on our lads right now. I
would say it's probably
redshirt sophomore.
Hudson Clement is the only one who would get a draftable grade in terms of their wide receiver, and it's a late day 3. Like you're talking like a Ben Skoranek type of receiver. He's not going to light the world on fire. So that's where it's going to be on Altmeyer to kind of lift some of those weapons up, like even the bench players like the Beatty and the Hudson Clement.
And I think too, like offensive line will help because they have a good offensive line. I mean, the Big Ten, we'll see. But they have a good offensive line unit, so they may be able to make some plays happen, even if the talent's not the greatest.
Okay. And they do, for what it is worth, they do have a pretty stud running back in Caden Fegan, who's 6'3", 250, which will help take some of that pressure off of Altmeyer. But yeah, the weapons around him are not the elite talent that he was used to with Pat Bryant last year.
So Beatty was 3rd team all Big Ten last year. So, and he started 12 games as a freshman. So at minimum, it's experience, even if the grade isn't draftable. There's an experience. He has an experienced wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not name brand yet, but I mean, they
Yep.
any one of them can probably break out this year.
100%.
So I like how you guys described Altmeyer. So the next quarterback we have is from Vanderbilt, and that's Diego. Is it Pavia? Or Pavia. Sorry about that, Diego. So Diego Pavia. So Durst, you want to kick that one off?
Well, so this is the only guy I have as being I'd be shocked if he was drafted. Long shot to make an NFL rosters, in my opinion. Shocked if he was drafted. I did have a guy, tweet out to me after I put some stuff out on him that it's like, hey, SEC guys, SEC quarterbacks are productive. They get drafted. But I'm not so sure in this case. My comp for him, just to kind of jump ahead of that, is J.T. Barrett, the former Ohio State quarterback. He had maybe a little bit taller, but a similar dense body style. Very good runner like Diego is, but more of a 4.7 athlete. And a guy with minimal, I hate to say it, but kind of minimal arm talent. I think everything from arm strength to mechanics to be able to drive the ball to with any kind of velocity. I think it's all like well below NFL standards. Now, this is a two-time transfer: New Mexico Military Institute from 2020 to 2021, and then New Mexico State from 2022 to 23. This is going to be his sixth season, his second season at Vanderbilt. He's got 2,492 career yards and 21 touchdowns rushing. So again, this is a little bit more of a rushing tough guy than an actual passer. I wrote down might be the toughest quarterback in the nation. He's a tackle breaker when he's running, and he would rather die in the football field than slide. I know a couple of weeks ago we were talking about Taylor Green, I think, about trying to teach this guy how to slide. This guy's like, you ain't teaching me how to slide. I'm going to do my thing, So he has an infectious personality, a charismatic leader. When you've heard him on these interviews and stuff like that, it's hard to take your eyes off of him. But I think he's probably shorter than his listed height. He looks to me shorter. Unorthodox mechanics with sort of a shot put like delivery. It doesn't seem like he's got any follow through in his delivery. So I think his mechanics and delivery are sort of a mess. Doesn't really marry his eyes and his feet. And he's a one read and go kind of guy. So. I think there's just a lot to be desired about the Vanderbilt offense in general, not really having a lot of NFL translatableness to the scheme that they're running right now. So, what do you guys think about Diego?
So Jim alluded to the fact that we don't compare notes and we don't discuss like how we view prospects. So I find it funny that Durst, you said this is the only guy that you're going to talk about tonight that's undrafted. Of the guys we're going to talk about tonight, this is my highest graded quarterback. And you know what? You know what? Listen, are his mechanics not good? No, they're not. Does he not have the size that you want? No. Does he have the elite physical tools? No, he doesn't have any of those things. But you know what? He goes out there. He makes some badass plays. This dude goes out. You talked about it. He would die on the field before he would lose a football game. He's scrambling, making plays, running for first downs, taking hits. I think he is like one of the better decision makers when it comes to like when the pocket collapses and he's getting the heat. His touchdown to interception ratio. This is also from PFF. I didn't realize I'd have a lot of PFF stats tonight, but whatever. They happen to be in my notes. 9-2 touchdown to interception ratio under pressure. 10-0 touchdown interception ratio when he is blitzed. So if the world is collapsing around him, he knows what to do. He can handle it. And also, we were talking before about like intangibles, stuff like that. Of all the quarterbacks we're talking about tonight, and quite possibly in this entire draft, if there's one man that I want leading my team and trying to win a football game with my team, it's probably Diego. Like this dude, I think we have to remember too, and we all know this, but like Vanderbilt has been the bottom of the barrel of the SEC for years, for probably most of, if not my entire life. So the fact now that they are relevant, and it's not all Diego, obviously, the coaching has done a great job and other factors, but Diego is a big reason for that. This kid, he transferred from New Mexico State a couple of years ago. He was their starter last year. He'll be their starter this year. And I'm also excited to see how he does with Eli Stowers, who we're probably all pretty high on, top 50 tight end for me. But regardless, I am. Listen, again, I see the flaws. I see the ceiling is absolutely limited. I don't dispute that. But guy that I would take 5th round, get him in the locker room. Hell, I could see him doing he's not quite as big, but like some Taysom Hill kind of stuff where you just throw him out and let him go, do some scramble RPO, make a couple throws like on a drive. If you just need a spark or you need some sort of energizer for your offense. I want him on the team. I don't really care what he's doing. I just want him in the locker room. So that's my Diego Pavia spiel. But Bill,
I love
feel free
it.
to crush it.
Yeah, so I am going to be with you, Anthony. He's my second highest guy that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm with you. This guy's a magician. Okay, when the ball's in his hands, he can make something out of nothing. You give him chicken bleep, he's going to make chicken salad out of it somehow. He's got the arm talent to make the NFL throws that you need. He's not going to make the deep ball throws. That's not his game, but he can make the out routes. He can make those. The concerns is the ball placement, especially over the middle of the field, is erratic. It's a scatter shot. It's a shotgun. His mechanics, especially that release, it's clunky. It needs to be reworked, but I'm with Anthony. This is a guy. I've got a 5th round grade on him. You draft him, you bring him in, you design some plays for him. He's the guy that you have as your backup long term, and if you need a spark, you throw him in. And my comp for him is a guy who did that same exact thing for many years in Seattle, backing up Matt Hasselbeck. My comp for him is Seneca Wallace. The exact same thing that we asked Seneca Wallace to do. Hey, go out there and run around and be a mobile quarterback. I could see Pavia doing that same thing. And I'm with you guys. This is a guy that would die on the football field to get his team a win, or die if you asked him to transfer to a Big Ten school, whichever happens first.
Cool. So anything else on Pavia?
I'll just maybe chime in a little bit. Like Trevor Sikkema is definitely somebody who liked Pavia when they did their quarterback. So I mean, I totally see where everybody's coming from. I mean, again, this infectious personality, this will to win, this carrying the team on the shoulders to defeat Alabama. I mean, I totally see. I'm just having a hard time seeing it all translate, but I totally see what Trevor and my boys here are seeing in this guy. He's an exciting football player.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, it's okay for Pavia to just be a fun college quarterback, even if he doesn't translate to the NFL. It's still a fun college quarterback. I mean, that's what guys like Tim Tebow and Colt McCoys and even the Vince Youngs, fun college quarterbacks that never really translated that well to the NFL. Those are still fun to have.
I think Trevor Sikkema said it on his podcast, and shout out to Trevor Sikkema. But apparently, I love PFF. But like Trevor said, I think Diego Pavia could be like a UFL legend, and that's not a bad thing,
No.
But great UFL players, would have a harder
AJ
time.
McCarron.
But
Yeah.
You can be a great UFL player and you can be a great college quarterback. That's totally fine. But he's just, again, I think he's just a football player. That is what he is at his core. He is a football player.
Yeah, and to that point, so AJ McCarron has had more than one shot at the NFL, but he'd rather play in the UFL than be third string in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? He's doing it because he loves to play, even though the practice squad paycheck is probably higher than what a UFL player makes. Right. But
Yeah.
you just, if you love to play, like I definitely love that UFL take there. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Let's pause before we do the last two quarterbacks. Anthony, you want to let everybody know who you are, how they can find all of your content?
Yeah. So I'm Anthony Russo. You can find me on X at Anthony_Russo97. Constantly tweeting out, tape and clips of guys that I'm watching. My summer scouting board is like at 120, which I know is nothing compared to Bill's, but for me, that's actually pretty impressive. But yeah, so you can find me there and see all my amazing or horrible draft content, depending on who you are and what you think.
Durst.
Hey, you can find me right here on Draft Professor. Tuesdays we will discuss. This Tuesday we're going to be discussing Oregon, and then Fridays discussing the quarterback class. But you can also find me at X/Twitter at Durst NFL Draft.
Bill.
So you can find me at X, TikTok, Instagram at Spark Scouting. I'm also on Substack as well. You can find me there. Search Spark Scouting and I'll pop up. Also a writer and analyst for the Right Way Sports Network. That's TWSN.net. I've been working through my top 10 positions over there, so go check those out. And Anthony talked about it. I currently have a big board of 436 prospects graded, scouted, and comped, because as I'm known around these parts as the comp king, I've got a comp for every player on my board. But you can also catch me here also at the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft podcast doing Fridays right now with quarterbacks. When the season starts to ramp up, you'll see me on Wednesday nights doing wide receivers and pulling some double duty, doing some defensive linemen as well. In addition, you can also find our lovely moderator over to my left here, Jim, at NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic, here on YouTube. Here on YouTube. You can also find him on X as well. And if you haven't already, go check out this man's draft simulator. I said it at the top of the hour. I'm going to say it again. There is not a better draft simulator out there on the web today. If you think there is, tell me in the comments how much I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate comments for that one. Jim, anything else you want to add before we slide into the next two?
Yeah, so as Bill said, follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. The best thank you can give is to hit the subscribe on YouTube. So we, as a group, have been pretty much going at this now. I think we're in month 10. Getting more subscribers is how we trend in front of more people. So hitting that subscribe, please, and thank you from all 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor. So as Durst said, he's pulling double duty right now in the summer. Mondays and Tuesdays, we're breaking down different colleges. Wednesdays and Thursdays, we're breaking down NFL teams and their draft classes. Fridays, we are doing quarterbacks. The quarterbacks for next week, if anybody wants to know, Connor Weekman from Houston, Blake Shapen from Mississippi State, Malachi Nelson from UTEP, Carson Becht from Miami will be the quarterbacks next week. But that being said, we still have two more quarterbacks to do today. And who's the next one up in the rotation? Is Durst kicking this one off?
I'll say, Durst, I think you can kick this one off because you're going to be covering Oregon on Tuesday, and it's the Oregon signal caller if you want to take it away.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a lot of Oregon tape, but so this is Dante Moore. He was a highly ranked 5-star, third-ranked quarterback from the 2023 high school rankings. And he played his first season at UCLA. About midway through the 2023 season, he got benched, never regained his starting job back, and transferred to Oregon. Now, he transferred to Oregon knowing he was going to be the backup. He said he wanted to be developed. He was looking at this thing with a long-term lens. Maybe at that point, he had seen what happened with Bo Nix and how he had turned his career around. And so he knew he was going to be behind Dylan Gabriel in the 2024 season, just sort of, biding his time, waiting his turn. So I basically went back and looked at 2023 tape. So I watched UCLA versus Utah, UCLA versus Coastal Carolina, and I watched the Oregon spring game to get a good feel of Dante Moore. So I wrote down that Dante Moore is the prototypical modern spread quarterback, accurate throwing on the run and off platform. I expect him to have a huge season with the Ducks. Just a little context and comparison. Bo Nix completed 77.4% of his passes in 2024. Dylan Gabriel completed 72.9% actually I said, sorry, Bo Nix 2023, Gabriel 2024 completed 72.9% of his attempts. Oregon's quick passing game suits Moore's skill set really well. And I think the Ducks O-line should be able to keep him clean. That was something he seemed to struggle with at UCLA, is when his offensive line was outmanned by like Utah, he really had a hard time with that. So that's his major weakness is average size and athleticism and struggling under pressure. UCLA or the ESPN 300, which is a high school ranking, they actually said that he was a natural passer, regarded as one of the best high school quarterbacks they've ever seen going through progressions. Wasn't really something we saw though in 2023 as a true freshman in UCLA. He seemed to struggle going through the progressions. He appeared to have difficulty seeing all 11 defenders and struggled to get rid of the ball or get the ball on time when his offensive line was overmatched. I believe that's why he transferred. I believe he was smart in doing so. So I think this guy looks like he's gonna, he's got a good hit on his shoulder. Some of these, some of these quarterbacks, they maybe make the wrong decisions on what they're going to do long term. Nico Iamaya Live, and then so I have him as a return to school. He technically still has 3 seasons of eligibility left. So he actually played during his freshman season and redshirted during his second season. So 3 seasons of eligibility left. I see a lot to it in his game. So, Anthony, why don't you add a little bit more to Dante Moore for me?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of the big points. I would say first, I cannot speak highly enough of the decisions he's made so far for his development. It was a rough. It's always an interesting evaluation when all you have to watch is 2-year-old tape and like one spring game that happened like a month ago.
Yeah.
But you watch his 2023 tape at UCLA as a true freshman, and it's very just not great all over the place. Durst touched on it, like he would just collapse under pressure in those high pressure situations, not able to deliver accurate passes, make bad decisions, and for a true freshman starting in his first year at a Power 5 program, like that is to be expected. So, to make the decision to say, okay, I want to be the best I can be, let me go to Oregon. Dylan Gabriel might be like what probably was the best tutor that he could have asked for in terms of like what his skill set is, what Oregon is going to ask him to do this year. And, we talked about like, Dylan Gabriel obviously went 3rd round this year. Bo Nix went 1st round to Denver, and he's playing very well there. So like they now have sort of a track record of quarterback success and quarterback development to the NFL. And I think Dante Moore pretty easily is the most physically gifted quarterback that Dan Lanning has had at Oregon in his time there so far. But you see the flashes, you see why he was a 5-star. Quick release, the ball placement can be there and can be very good. I think he is a perfect fit for a modern spread offense. It sucks that he is not going to have Evan Stewart this year, who suffered that knee injury. But he is still going to have Kenyon Sadiq. He's still going to have DeCorian Moore, who is a true freshman this year, but is already getting some hype as a guy that's going to make some noise at wide receiver this year. They're bringing in Mekhi Hughes, the transfer running back from Tulane, The offensive line is going to be one of, if not the best in the Big Ten. So he has and the defense is going to be, pretty stout. He has everything around him that he needs to emerge as a top quarterback, at least in the Big Ten, if not in all of college football. So at this point, if he was in the NFL draft, he probably honestly doesn't get drafted. Like you really don't have a lot to go on, and it is all projection, and it is all, hope that he can turn into what he showed flashes of. But I will not be surprised if by the end of the year, and even if he doesn't declare, I won't be surprised if he's on the path to being a first round quarterback. I don't think he will declare this year because he still will really only have 1 year in that offense and in that system. Like Durst said, he has 3 years at his disposal, so there's really no need to rush it if he doesn't want to. But I see the world where Dante Moore is a first round quarterback. He's just not there yet.
Bill.
Yeah, so Durst and Anthony hit the nail on the head. It can't be understated what Dante Moore did for the decision of his development. It's a green flag because you look at what he was at UCLA. He was behind an offensive line that did no better than a subway turnstile, letting everybody through. He was in Chip Kelly's offense, which is not for everybody. It's not for every quarterback to run. Will Howard ran it well, but it's not a very well grasped offense. You have to know the nuances. The biggest, when you watch that UCLA tape, the biggest struggle that you see in back-to-back contests, he threw pick sixes and then benched that following week. He had every reason to give up and chose not to, went to Oregon, sat behind Gabriel, and learned and developed his skill set. For me, he is the highest rated guy we're talking about tonight, and I've got a 4th round grade on him because there were a lot of flashes. His release mechanics allowed him to get the ball out quickly. He has the arm strength and velocity that allows him to drive the ball through tight windows. Like we've talked about, the quality of saying, hey, I know I am not an NFL prospect. I'm going to go somewhere and develop myself. That certainly cannot be understated. In addition to that, I love his ball placement on the intermediate stuff, the 10 to 20 yards. It was on a rope in some occasions. The problem was he just never had time to let those routes develop because he was under siege. For me, I see a lot of what I saw from Teddy Bridgewater at Louisville, a guy who has the arm talent, has the mechanics, has the arm strength, but can get a little bit shell-shocked under pressure. Same thing we saw at Teddy Bridgewater at Louisville. He would get a little bit shell-shocked. I don't see him declaring in this draft cycle. If he did, he would be an early day 3 pick, probably would be one of those guys that would be one of the risers that teams would talk about. I can fix the UCLA tape. I think this is a 2027 guy. And with Durst, I strongly implore him to return to school unless he goes out and he lights the world on fire, has a Heisman campaign, Oregon wins the national championship, and he's checked every box that he can check in college football. Go back to school for another year and could be talked about as a top 10 pick in 2027.
Yeah, this time next year we might be talking about him as a top 10 pick. But like these guys said, I mean, I don't think he's going to go out this year. I think he's going to have a hell of a season though with Oregon this year.
100%.
Yeah, and I believe we're breaking down 30 quarterbacks. We're basically doing about 5 at a time on podcasts. But I think the average is like 12 get drafted, right? It's like 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. So there's a good chance out of the 30 quarterbacks we talk about, I think about 10 of them are going to go back. But it from a building a draft board standpoint, one of the things that we are learning from Bill is that if we do look at positions and we look at, like, for example, on the wide receiver board before the show, we were talking about Bill has 23 wide receivers with a day 1 or day 2 grade, and 10 of them are underclassmen, I believe it was, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So we already have, even if most of those 10 go back, we have a pretty good idea as to who should be the first receivers that we watch next year. And that cycle continues. And I'm just going to call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. But that being said, we have one more quarterback to cover, and that's Eli Holstein from Pitt. So, Anthony, do you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, so it's going to be some similar vibes with Eli Holstein that we just had with Dante Moore. This is another redshirt sophomore. This is a guy who started last year as a freshman for Pitt after transferring there from Alabama. He is a big arm, big body, 6'4", 225. And I think he, purely from an arm standpoint, is probably the best arm that we've talked about this evening. He can make throws down the field. He can throw with velocity. He throws with a tight spiral. All of that is there. I also like the fact that he, as a freshman, where you saw with Dante Moore, his confidence was like visibly shaken. I think at times, like when he's throwing those pick sixes or making bad decisions, Eli Holstein is like consistently willing to throw the ball down the field. It's not always a good result, but he's willing to do it, which for a freshman, I think is a positive thing. I touched on it just then. The decision-making is very subpar, misses underneath defenders, doesn't place the ball where it needs to be. His accuracy is very inconsistent. I watched 3 games for when I evaluate a quarterback. Sometimes more if I feel necessary, but it's always a minimum of 3. And every single game that I watched of Eli Holstein, there's at least one, if not multiple passes that are just flying over a receiver's head, just sailing out of bounds, and not because of, like he's getting hit or anything. Like he's just missing on some of these throws that, like, even as a freshman should still be making. But it was almost weird because I don't think it was from like we've been talking about a lot about like bad mechanics and bad releases and that kind of thing. It's not, I don't think that's it, because I would say relatively, like, mechanics are pretty good and the release is pretty good. To me, I wrote down, like, it almost feels like he was kind of like learning about himself, if that makes sense. Like he was like learning how his body was gonna like work and how he was able to make throws. Like it seemed like he didn't know he didn't know his own strength, right? Like that's kind of the vibe that it gave me almost. Which it could be it could be anything as a freshman. It could be nerves, it could be just unsure of oneself and or not really familiar with the college feel and a college atmosphere. I don't know. But I just think he needs to kind of just calm down and learn the offense and fix those kinds of problems with his decision making and problems with the accuracy. The other problem is he's not really a scrambler, and if you look at his stats, that might seem like an odd criticism, because like there was a game where he ran for like 100 and something yards and a touchdown or 2. It was against Youngstown State. If you watch that game, Youngstown State looks like they weren't even playing football. They were like, I don't know, doing like high school cross country or something. Like they were like not. They looked slow, and like I'm not a football player, but like, man, they did not look great. So I don't take like that gaudy stat line as like, oh man, this guy's a big time runner. No, I don't think so.
No.
So yeah, overall, I wrote down. I think he actually gave me some Jameis vibes, but like Jameis now, where it's like he doesn't really have like the elite pocket passing like the year that he won the Heisman, and now it's just like the arm talent is still there. You see the big arm, but just the decision making and the inaccuracies are just going to kill you. But again, he's a redshirt sophomore. He's got 3 years left if he wants them. I think he should take them. I think he should not declare for this draft, maybe not even declare for 27. Just, again, work on your mechanics, work on your consistency when it comes to making good decisions. And one other thing, 9 fumbles in 2024, not great. So work on your ball security. That's a big one too. But yeah, there are tools there that you like, that you can see the path to being an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's really even close yet. But Bill, give us your thoughts on Eli.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head on a lot of it, Anthony. That a pro style frame, right? So this is a guy 6'3", 225 is what I had, 6'4", 225. So a little bit bigger than some of the guys we've talked about tonight. Has the arm talent, can drive the ball down the outside numbers with some velocity behind it. He is probably, outside of Dante Moore, who we just talked about, he's probably the second highest ceiling of any of the guys we're going to talk about tonight. And I'd argue one of the highest ceilings that we could see from the 30 that we're going to talk about as we move through this scouting. My concern is his processing speed. He can be several clicks late, especially on intermediate throws, and he gets away with it because he's playing teams like Youngstown State. But there's some where he won't get away with it against higher competition. And in the NFL, his accuracy is scattershot at times, especially on short crosses, slants. You mentioned it, Anthony. He tries to be a scrambler. I'm going to, in Eli and the folks at Pitt, if you're watching, I want you to look right here. I want you to look. Hold on to the ball, son. I'm begging you. 9 fumbles. 9 fumbles is crazy in of itself when we think about that number. But when you look at the 9 fumbles itself, 3 of them came against SMU, 2 of them against Cal, and then 1 in a few other games. So you're talking in 2 games, you coughed the ball up 5 times. That and the NFL level is going to get you benched. So if you want to scramble, that is absolutely fine. I just need you to duct tape the ball to your hands. For me, I'm looking mid 4th, 5th round grade if he comes out, but I implore him, like Anthony, return to school, spend another year in school. I see a lot of Blaine Gabbert in his game. The same thing we saw at Missouri with Blaine Gabbert, had the arm, had the mechanics, tried to be a scrambler. It really didn't work. Accuracy was really scattershot. Same thing we saw with Eli Holstein. But Durst, take us home on the Pitt Panther product.
Tell you what, I'll start off with the comp then, since you just mentioned Blaine Gabbert. I have a comp of Drew Lock. If I remember right, they both went to Missouri, didn't they?
You are correct. Mizzou quarterbacks.
So anyway, so Drew Lock, I think if he were to come out this season, like after this season, that's probably about what we're looking at. Now, he's got 3 seasons of eligibility left. I think Anthony mentioned this earlier, but he redshirted his first season at Alabama. He's only played 1 season, and he missed several games with injuries, including to the ankle and the head in 2024. So this is a guy that's pretty impressive for how little he's played. So I wrote down big power thrower who showed off a lot of promise as a redshirt freshman. Good mechanics for such a young player. Has confidence in his arm. So Anthony was talking about that earlier about, some of the quarterbacks seem like they lack confidence. Dante Moore. This guy seems like he's got confidence in his arms. He can also break through tackle attempts. But I would say that he's much better if he stays in the pocket and lets it rip. I agree. I don't think his rushing output is something that's going to translate into the pros. He is out of his element to me when he tries to create. He throws too many passes at receivers' knees and feet once he starts trying to improvise. He had several throws thrown into double or triple coverage. Yeah, he's got the confidence in his arm, but several throws thrown into double or triple coverage. He's got a 5.3 turnover worthy play percentage versus 3.9% for the big time throw percentage. Again, shout out to PFF grades. He had 9 fumbles, 7 interceptions. I wrote down he puts too much too much air on the ball on some of these deep passes. So some of these look like arm punts and stuff. Now there's a lot of touch on it. There's some accuracy on those throws, but a little bit similar to Ewers from last year. Some of these deep balls I think I just don't like the trajectory on some of these. So he's got too much air on some passes, on deep passes, and also I felt like on some of these goal line fades. Although I think that's probably that he might have coached to do it that way. So in the end, he played so well as a freshman, but has got some, and some rare. It only takes really like a rare, talented redshirt sophomores that can, declare in the NFL after the redshirt sophomore year. One more thing, actually, I did have some notes further down here. So against Cincinnati. Again, back to the whole trying to play like off platform and just kind of improvise. So he had one play where he was doing the Tim Tebow where he's trying to do the jump pass, but then he did the jump pass to, I think it was the tight end, and it kind of sailed on him. So that didn't really work out. And then that same game against Cincinnati, they were doing a shuffle pass. And to me, it looked like he just barely, they got the ball there. So the receiver dropped the ball in the shuffle pass, but it was because it really didn't get there with any power. It was kind of like, falling to the ground right as it was getting to his fingertips. I think that same game he had 1 interception, but 2 dropped interceptions, maybe in the first half even. And then when you get to the SMU game, there's a play where he turns around and throws backwards to, I think it was a running back coming out of the backfield, but there was a defender on him. So that he ended up like bounce passing this backwards like a lateral and hits the defender on like the backside. And so, it's a live ball because, it's thrown as a lateral. So when he tries to do the Pat Mahomes like improvisation or even the Caleb Williams that I think is totally out of his element. So I think he's more of a pocket passer, sit back, let it rip because he's got the arm. He's a power thrower.
Okay. So I liked how all 3 of you for the last 2 QBs, like for independent and completely independent analysis. That's what we pride ourselves on here. Go back to school, but there's legit talent there, right? Like legit ceilings.
Yeah, and especially.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say, especially, we talked about it with Dante Moore at Oregon, having all that talent around him. Pitt does have some talent this year. Desmond Reed at the running back position. They've got 2 very solid tackles, and Jeff Percy on the left side and Ryan Baer on the right side. And then they've got some receivers in Raphael Williams and Kenny Johnson and even Sincere Lee. Not necessarily draftable receivers, but some fun talent around him. So like we talked about with Dante Moore, he's got talent around him that he himself in Holstein will have to elevate a little bit, but not as much. I mean, Reed was almost 1,000-yard rusher last season. So you have that. You have 2 standout tackles on the left and right side. So like you were hitting on, Jim, these are guys that go back to school, have another year, especially with NIL money. There's no reason for you to come out right now if you're not ready. You don't need to rush to the league. The money will be there. Go back to school, develop your game, and when we start talking about you in 2027, just remember, folks, you heard it here first from some of the smartest people in the draft community at the Draft Professor.
It's not some, Bill. We are the smartest people, right? Like there's no some. There's no.
I was trying to be humble, Jim. I was trying to be humble, okay?
No, that's just the last second stuff. So, the problem, I hate to say the problem, but one of the concerns of Drake May is he had such a really good redshirt freshman year. And his redshirt sophomore year was a little bit of a disappointment. And it was like, well, you'd like to see it the other way around. If we could reverse those 2 years and his redshirt sophomore year was like his redshirt freshman season. this guy might be that. This guy might, okay, it was a pretty, it was a promising redshirt freshman year, but if he puts together a redshirt sophomore year, that's a big improvement. He might be seen like a Drake May kind of guy. So I could see this guy being the first, guy drafted out of this crew, this year, if everything works for him. Again, I don't think Dante Moore is going to end up. I think it's just totally against what his like larger plans going to be.
So as you guys have done summer scouting, what does the offensive skill position room at Pitt look like from a draftable standpoint? And I realize we're digging into the bag because, Anthony, you're looking at a 150 player board, Bill's, at 450. So I realize you guys haven't all watched the same players yet. Durst and I'm assuming Durst is somewhere in the middle. But I'm curious, does Pitt have anybody that we're going to be talking about at another position, whether it be tight end or receiver or back? Bill,
I've got one, and it's Desmond Reed, and he's a round 4 guy. But their receivers, they're fun, but they're not draftable talent receivers. They'd be like PFA level guys that could probably rise with a good bowl circuit, but you're not getting much higher than 6th round, maybe 5th if we're talking about Raphael Williams Jr. But yeah, they're not going to be like the Oregon Evan Stewart, Kenyon Sadiq type of guys. Reed would probably be the only one I'd have a draftable grade on.
That said, though, Desmond Reed's fun. Like he's super. He's undersized. That'll be a big question, like for his NFL future. But man, he makes some plays that he'll definitely he will be an asset for Eli, if not his biggest asset. Certainly
100%
for sure.
He's like a Justin Forsett with rocket boots. Is the way I look at Desmond Reed.
Yep.
And we can shout out one of the best names. There's a guy whose first name is Sincere and his last name is Lee. And when you say it real quick, it's Sincerely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it, Durs. Absolutely love it. I wonder, his mother knew that. His mother planned that. Like, shout out to that gentleman's mother.
There's no world where I would believe that she just stumbled upon the name Sincere and didn't put together that his last name would be Lee and that would be Sincerely. Like, that had to have been planned. And if it wasn't, wow. That's all I have to say.
Just
okay. Well, we have a lot of people watching right now. So again, we want to say thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe on YouTube. We have daily draft content. So if you like this content, we have podcasts every day. There are 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor. You're seeing 3 here plus myself. You'll see me nearly every time. And then the others rotate, but we have about 22 of those 80 that podcast once a week. So if you figure out what night everybody's on, you'll catch Bill on Wednesdays and Fridays. You catch Durst on Tuesdays and Fridays. Anthony's on Friday and Saturdays. And you'll get a vibe. But if you like what you hear, like, we're here every day.
Yeah.
Literally every day. And we're about to ramp up that we're going to be on twice a day. So 7 p.m., 9 p.m. And if this is your first time seeing us, when mock draft season starts, we do mock drafts like nobody else. So we'll have 32 of us here drafting for our respective teams. It's a sight to behold, but we are still about 5 months away from mock draft season. That being said, I am going to be podcasting some mock draft stuff probably tomorrow night. So at least going through some first round grades from some of the different draft professors and the boards that they've shared with me. So that being said, thank you for watching, everybody. On behalf of Bill, Anthony, Durst, the 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor, my name is Jim, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.